Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the PVP podcast. Today I have the arsonist joining me to have a chat, and I would like to welcome Dr. Angela Mulrooney to the show. So Angela, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, thank you for accepting this invitation, taking the time out of your day to sit down with me and have a chat. For our listeners, give us a little background about who you are and where you came from.
So I'm a serial entrepreneur. My career started originally as a dentist. That's where the doctor in front of my name comes from. But after getting injured out of my career, I had to reinvent myself because no one was coming to save me.
Right.
So I went through a massive identity crisis because dentistry had been what I wanted to be since I was 2 and I was 32 and I got injured out. But it set me on this path of being able to create identity in different industries with different niches of genius and find the gaps that were there. And that has really informed the work that I do now in identity architecture, especially with our senior professionals, because just like me getting my career yanked out from underneath me unexpectedly by the injury, they're experiencing that as well right now with being considered aged out, too old, too stuck in their ways, even though they have massive things to contribute and we're probably expecting to work for another 10, 20 years. And suddenly they feel like they can't get ground and the system changed without telling them. And so now they're having to relearn how to navigate it.
Nice. That's quite an introduction. Now, I mean, if you don't mind me asking, being a dentist, what type of injury was it, if it's not too personal, that ended your career?
So it's actually called focal dystonia. So it's actually an injury from overusing your fine motor skill. So literally my dental career killed my dental career. And so it's progressive and like it's hard for me to control a pen, let alone a 500,000 RPM drill in someone's mouth or a scalpel. So I was definitely forced to move on, not by my own choice.
I mean, and you have to have the tools that you use and everything. So I got a better understanding of it. So let me ask you another personal question. You mentioned you wanted to be a dentist since a very young age, and then you get into that dream field, and then you suffer an unforeseen circumstance that causes you to pivot and shift and everything. What was like the impact on the mindset, when that change came about?
It was massive. Honestly, I didn't have a dark night of the soul when they told me you can't touch another patient. I had a dark year of the soul because all my value was based on external accolades, right? Ever since I was a kid, wanting to be a dentist meant that I was the smart kid. I was always top of my class. When I got out, I had my place in the community. I built a practice that catered to people who were afraid of the dentist. So I served not just the patients, but also fellow dentists because they didn't want to deal with them. So they referred me their patients. So when all that just went up in flames, I was left with myself, with no one coming to save me and having no idea how I was going to contribute to the world. I didn't know how I was going to survive financially. I had a practice that my patients didn't want to come to because I wasn't there. And definitely psychologically, it was hard because for 32 years, like I had known really my place in the world and suddenly there was no place that I had. And so instead of listening to myself, which what I really wanted to do was just get out, sell the practice and move on because clearly this part of my life was over. Everyone advised me, you've built this amazing brand. You're trusted by other dentists. You're trusted by the phobic population. Just keep it open. People can fill in your place. And here's the problem with phobic patients. Most dentists don't want to deal with them. That's why they referred them to me. So when dentists stepped into my position, they not only didn't have the skill set that I had acquired to be able to serve them well, they also didn't have the patience, CE, not TS, to serve that population. So I ended up having to downgrade the practice back to pretty much a basic bread and butter practice, even though I had created this high-end practice that had IV sedation and full mouth reconstruction and all these things that really served that population. So it was pretty devastating to watch it degrade the way that it had to in order for it to survive. And then when 2015 hit and the oil crisis hit Calgary, the economy took a nosedive. I built the practice during the global financial crisis, and that was a slow one, but this was super fast. And I decided it was time to trust myself and get out and move on to other things.
Yeah, I remember that oil crisis. And I remember 20 years ago how I'm from Montreal, and I remember 20 years ago how a large percentage of my friends were shipping off out west to Alberta to work in the oil industry. There was just so much demand and so much it was demanding and manpower that was needed. And I had friends and I had family. It seemed like a trend at one point how everyone was leaving and just going to work in Calgary or Alberta, and for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, right? My dream career is no longer. Now what? What did that part look like? How long did it take you to shift and pivot into a new direction?
I started my professional dance company and built that in a year, and we became the second largest adult-based Latin company in the first 6 months. Well,
It's crazy, how life works. Way.
yeah, so after the dental clinic, there was the professional dance company, and
Okay.
then I layered on a dental consulting company that I took global in a year because I figured I should probably be using my dental education since I invested so much time and money in it. And then I layered on a social media agency. And so by the time those were all done being layered on, I was running 3 companies simultaneously. And then the pandemic hit. And a year into, or 10 months into the pandemic, I decided to move to Nicaragua because I didn't want to spend the pandemic in a snowbank.
Yeah.
And I got there and suddenly I was like, okay, I'm in the tropics. I'm riding a motorcycle to the beach in the morning to surf. I'm doing all these things that I wanted to do. And I'm working 100-hour work weeks in the tropics. Like, this is ridiculous. So I started lighting matches and sold off my companies. And by 9 months into being in Nicaragua, I had sold off everything and restarted and just took the best of everything into one company, which is what Unleashing Influence is, with identity architecture.
Wow. Wow. Interesting. And was there like moving to another city within your own country is a big thing, and moving to another country is an even bigger thing.
So it was funny because a year before I moved, a boyfriend had asked me, Ange, what does your dream life look like? And I was working 100-hour work weeks in Calgary, had my 3
Wow.
companies. Everyone thought I was a badass. And I described, waking up in the tropics, feeling the humidity on my skin, seeing palm trees outside my window, smelling fragrant flowers, and riding my motorcycle to the beach. And that was so disparate from the life I was living. And I had never imagined doing that. But for some reason, him asking that question brought that out of me. And then I brought that to life. And slowly over that year, after he kind of planted that seed of what my dream life looked like, I just started seeing what other people were doing and being like, you know what? There's other ways to do this, right? There's other ways to build companies. There's other ways to be successful. There's other ways to live life. And so I started taking the best of everything and started letting go of pieces of me that didn't really make sense when I compared them to what I thought was really cool about what other people were doing. So by the time I sold my house and sold everything and bought a one-way ticket, my plan wasn't actually to stay in Nicaragua, but what happened was when I arrived 5 days after Canada canceled spring break, I don't know if you remember that, where
Yeah.
they canceled all the tropical flights. So I actually got stuck. And I was a little bit afraid with that happening of what would happen if I moved to different regions where I knew one person there. So I was like, okay, I might as well stay here. But it, it wasn't that calculated. It happened over that year after that question was asked. And then I just stayed abroad for the 4 years after that. And I've only been back in Canada for a year, and I'm actually heading out again this Saturday, back to the nomad life in the tropics because winter is not my friend.
Yeah, I was about to say just in time, because out here in Montreal, the Saturday is supposed to be minus 30 degrees. And no, if I had an opportunity to live in, the tropics or the Caribbean, where I could have a beach within a 10-minute walk from wherever I am, I mean, I definitely would take that than, wrestling with winter for sure. So did you, when you moved down there and everything, did you feel a sense of I'm home here? You know what I mean? Like, this is more me. Did you feel like a shift? Like, I know a lot of people that, for example, a lot of my close friends, personal acquaintances, they've moved to Dominican Republic, Mexico, one's in Costa Rica, someone's in Dubai. And a few of them explain, again, because it's such a big life change, not many people do it, but a few of them kind of explain this feeling of feeling at home in their new surroundings almost instantly. Or was there a delay in the transition for you?
There was definitely a delay, but that was because of what was happening in my personal life,
Yeah.
not because of where I was. But
Okay.
honestly, ever since I left Nika, I've dreamed about being back in the jungle and waking up to the monkeys in the morning and
Yeah.
the birds singing at night. And my body likes being there better than it does in Canada with the dystonia.
Yeah.
It's very painful. So in the winter, it makes it much worse. So
Yeah.
my body definitely appreciated it. But life there is just so different. It's so simple. And when you get into the expat community who has chosen to be there as well,
Yeah.
they're thinking outside the box. So you start to, again, expand your mind as to all the possibilities of what life could be like instead of what we've subscribed to in North America. Get the grades, get the job, get the title, get into the institution that you want to be in. That's, how you succeed. And you see over and over again in the expat community, people are succeeding in completely different ways than we were trained into as kids in North
Yeah.
America.
And, from my personal experience, every time I travel abroad, I still work, right? Being an entrepreneur, is a good blessing and a curse, I guess, because we're capable of working wherever we have,
Internet?
Wi-Fi and internet connection for sure. But I feel like every time I've worked for example, my place is Dominican Republic. That's my place. That's the country I fell in love with outside of, Canada. And every time I'm down there, number one, my stress level is just non-existent. I think as soon as I board that flight, there's no more stress and there's no more of the feeling of being in the rat race. But my productivity down there is so much more. Like I'm able to be a lot more productive than I am at home in my noisy, busy life in Montreal. So
Mhm.
have you noticed an increase in your like productivity or motivation or determination when it comes to like working abroad or working from Nicaragua?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like you can compress time down there because you actually don't want to be sitting in your house working on your computer all day when
In
beauty
minus
is right
30.
outside the window, right? And it's one thing that I noticed with when I was on the speaking circuit, when I was admiring certain people, they were really amazing thought leaders. They were doing amazing things with their career, really changing the world. The common denominator of them, no matter what industry they were, is that they were living somewhere that was inspiring. And that also started to play into, after he asked me that question, I was like, what is it about the people that inspire me that I've noticed? And like they were living in, on a ranch in California, or they were living somewhere in Europe where it was tropical and warm. They didn't always live in tropical places, but they lived somewhere that was beautiful. So they had the ability to get out into nature and be inspired by that, which tends to also change the way we process information when we're not in a cement jungle.
Yeah. Yeah, and I see these things and these reels online all the time, It says you think you're depressed until you change your surroundings and then you realize how much it has to do. Cuz like look,
Hugely.
like and I tell people this all the time, like Canada, we're just trying to survive. We're going to work to pay the bills, to pay the mortgage, to pay the rent, to pay the heating, to pay the food and everything. And I seen a colleague of mine earlier today who works in the real estate industry, and I said, "What's going on?" And his response was, "Just trying to survive." And it's just like, yeah, And I think that we get so caught up in this here that we kind of forget, like the good things in life. And for example, when I'm working from a beach, I could tell you that I feel a lot better mentally, physically, in terms of productivity. I could tell you that I don't feel the stress. But when I'm in, like you said, the cement jungle, there's never enough time. And someone who has multiple ventures, you know what I mean, who's in multiple fields and, very like, I don't want to say spread out, but, has their hands in a lot of different bread baskets. One thing I think that you could understand is not feeling like there's enough time in a day
Mhm.
to take care of everything. Which comes to the testament that, your surroundings definitely do have an effect on productivity, moods, and everything like that.
Yeah. Well, I even talk to people, when they in Canada, we're always like, oh, what's the weather like today? Or we're like, oh, the weather, it's great, or it's crappy. And in the tropics specifically, it's pretty much the same all year round. Like that's
It's
not even a calculation in your head anymore. And I think we do spend a lot of time calculating traffic. We're calculating weather. We're calculating, oh my gosh, am I going to have time to see my friends? Right. And I'm going to have to plan this 2 weeks ahead because I'm too busy. Right. Whereas I find in smaller town life, especially in expat communities, you make the time because you actually are happier. You're feeling more social. You want to get out and enjoy the people and the food and the experiences that are around there. That, like, when people visit Canada, they definitely experience those things, but we take it very much for granted and get into a rut very quickly. And I think breaking out, even if you just go away for a week and go hang out in a different town, it would break you out of things, let alone if you're moving to a completely different environment, like a different country.
definitely, definitely. I mean, I go to Toronto 3 times a year and I get that feeling. You know what I mean? And then people tell me like, but if you lived here full time, it would probably be the same repetitive story, right? A concrete jungle. But then every time I go somewhere where there's just even more sunlight, you know what I mean? And just just that has a huge effect on moods, which has a huge effect for me on performance. So with that being said, we're just going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors and we'll be right back.
Inspections. Mercurio is a trusted and experienced inspection firm known for their thorough, professional approach and attention to detail. They specialize in providing clear, easy-to-understand reports that help buyers, sellers, and investors truly understand the condition of a property before making important decisions. Their commitment to transparency, accuracy, and reliability makes them a valuable partner in any real estate transaction. Our trusted partner since 2018.
All right, guys, welcome back. Welcome back. I'm sitting down with the arsonist. And so I wanted to ask you, based on everything that you've been through so far in your career, where do you see things going in the next 5 years for you, career-wise?
What I'm seeing is we've started something called Innovation House. So we
Okay.
are helping senior professionals take their beautiful brains and turn them into products that can scale without them. So they can
Right.
still deliver consulting, they can still empower people with one-on-one work or group work, but we're also developing products that can reach more mass population. And so that's the main focus for me, because I've built a couple of products for myself that we have like 100 times how many people we served last year compared to the year before. Our goal is 1,000 times this year, 10,000 times next year. And in the meantime, there's people who are coming into Innovation House who are like, hey, I have an idea, but I don't know how to execute it. So
Right.
I help them to download their brain, and then we move it over to the AI and innovation team, and then they build it out for them. So I get to be the bridge between those. And that's really exciting to me because so many people, again, with our senior professionals, they're feeling aged out and they're like, ugh, I have this thing that I want to contribute and I can't. And so now doing this is a way for them to have it to live without them and create a massive ripple effect in the world. And I find that I love it because one little drop in the water and it's rippling out for a very long time with what they're building.
I mean, and it sounds like you provide tremendous value to senior professionals because not everybody is, my AI skills are very limited. ChatGPT, right? And not everyone is very in tuned with, AI or technology. And these are one of these things, like even AI, such as technology, it's ever evolving. So it's always changing. It's always upgrading. There's always new things. You know what I mean? And some people do not have a good, understanding of it, are essentially illiterate when it comes to technology and AI, right? So I think that for senior professionals, you're providing tremendous value, and because, I meet a lot of people in my world, coaching, consulting, real estate investing. I meet a lot of people who have ideas or goals that they don't execute because for whatever reason, they don't know how to execute, like you were just explaining, or they don't know how to put an idea into action or, what tools to even use, where to even start, right? So sometimes people need a tremendous, boost or a push or some sort of guidance. And so when it comes to these clients that you work with, where are they based? Where are they located out of? Is it locally, internationally?
Internationally. That's
Yeah.
the beauty of the way that I've designed my companies, especially
Yeah.
since the pandemic. I was working with people mostly through Zoom anyway. So
Yeah.
most of my clients have never actually met me in person, but we have really deep relationships because of how much we dig into things together on Zoom. So we
Yeah.
feel like we're best friends. And I have had the opportunity to meet a few of them. And it's always so funny because we're like, you're exactly what I expected you to be, and vice versa. So it's quite lovely when we do get to that point.
Yeah. I think that's one good thing that came out of the pandemic is, a certain percentage of people were forced to execute on business ideas and also Zoom meetings they're great, especially living, in a city like Montreal. If I could do a Zoom meeting versus driving an hour to meet for an hour, I could save myself X amount of hours every day just being stuck in traffic and get a lot more meetings done on Zoom, or
Yeah.
virtually. And then it allows you to also, for, virtually based businesses and stuff like that, it allows you to have a wider reach because physically demanding businesses, you're only limited to that physical aspect of things, right?
Absolutely.
So, I
And through
mean,
platforms like LinkedIn, you have the ability to have a global audience if you can cater to the different cultures and different approaches to the work that they're doing.
yeah, I know I have a colleague of mine, he started he's a business development consultant and he started this business in COVID because his work at the time shut down. So they were off and he was just like, I sat at a computer, typed a bunch of my thoughts onto paper and realized this could be a business. And now he's doing, he's coaching all over North America, more specifically in the car sales industry, with dealerships and stuff. But he built all that through the pandemic era, which is, it was a terrible era for some businesses, but then a good era for others, and like to bring their ideas to life. It was, in the sense, it was the kind of the kick to the rear that some people needed to, take that leap of faith. So,
Yeah, and I think AI is really accelerating the
oh,
opportunities right now as well, if you can lean into it, right? If you're being naive that it's not going to eat your lunch, well, you're probably wrong. So
yeah.
you're better to learn how it's going to eat your lunch and feed it your lunch the way that you want it, so that you can actually leverage it and not get swallowed by it.
Yeah. And again, you have to understand it. You have to have a good sense of understanding. You have to know how to, utilize it, and basically just, but I believe it's like some people have it when it comes to technology, and some people don't. Like in the real estate industry, I still see, for example, real estate brokers that send out newsletters and mailers in the mail. And I remember, seeing someone with a box, and where are you going with these 5,000 flyers? He said, Post Canada, to have them delivered to this sector. I said, people still send paper flyers in the mail? Like, in my head, it's email blasts now, because you could reach 5, 10, 15,000 people with an email blast at the fraction of a cost as you can sending out paper flyers. And I don't even, but I guess everyone has their own niche when it comes to business, and it's about finding their niche. So when it came to finding your niche, was that something that was clear at the beginning when you ventured out into being an entrepreneur, or was it something that took a little bit of like trial and error, some testing, fine tuning, maybe? What did
Well, it
that look
actually
like for you?
it came to a head when I was in Nicaragua, because again, I ended up with the 100-hour work weeks again. And I ended up having this weird inspiration. I had these sticky notes on my table, and I was really frustrated because I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm wasting my life. I'm living in this beautiful place. I don't know what I'm doing. So I started writing a skill on each sticky note, and they were pink and yellow. I remember this very vividly. So by the time I was done, there was like 50 skills, and I had them on a whiteboard, and I was like, this is just chaos. So I went for a run, and I came back and went to bed, and my board was in my bedroom. So when I woke up, I had these like fluorescent sticky notes staring me down. I'm like, okay, there has to be a reason I had this inspiration. I decided to start ordering them because there had to be some rhyme or reason or pattern to it. And so I started to put it in a pile of loved skills and hated skills. And I took the loved ones and I ordered them from most loved to least loved. And what came out in the wash was these three things. So the first one was that, I'm really good at helping people to find their genius. So that creates their credibility. I'm really good at helping them to get visibility through LinkedIn and other methods. And I'm really good at helping them to impact their ideal clients. Those were the three skills that I loved the most and really what I wanted to do. So those got pulled together into identity architecture, and they became how I started delivering my services. So when I had that moment of revelation, I was like, well, my social media agency doesn't allow me to go all in on this. My consulting company for dentists doesn't allow me to go all in this. And so, nor does my dance company. So I burned the companies, sold them off, and then took my best of everything, which was those three skills, into Unleashing Influence and started building identity architecture around that. And then that started developing as one-on-one delivery. Then I was starting to head towards 100-hour work weeks again. I was like, I can't do this again. I need to figure this out. So then I talked to my clients. I'm like, I'm just going to put you into group, and we're going to do this as a group cohort. There's going to be an education portion, an education curriculum that we're going to go through. And everyone was okay with it. And when I did that, I 17 times my hourly rate, because I wasn't doing one-on-one. I was now doing everyone at the same time, or groups at the same time anyway. And then that came into me actually developing the intellectual products that were based on those curriculums, and also the self-serve, like the diagnostic of the personal branding playbook, which diagnoses really what your credibility is in the market. I've got the content machine that creates that visibility. And then the impact part is Innovation House. So it created the ecosystem of what I was doing. But it wasn't in that moment, I was like, oh, here's all the things I'm going to do. It's like, okay, I realized what my genius was. And then I allowed it to evolve over the years into what we're doing now.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. I mean, and like, so the way you talk with so much enthusiasm, I don't even think I need to ask this question, but I'm going to make the bold assumption that you love what you do.
I love what I do.
Right. I mean, just the way you talk about it with so much excitement, enthusiasm, it's great. And like, was this, I don't want to say a doubt in your head, but was it an instant love for what you do, or did it take some time to kind of, adapt? And like, I guess it comes all down to like that pivoting and, changing directions and everything. Some people have a hard time of, I don't want to say letting go of the past, but accepting the fact, like, for example, someone in their dream career who suffered an injury to put an end to it might have a long time to accept it. And it might actually bleed into the new career or the new venture. Or was it just like an instant transition, instant love for you?
My problem is I never do anything that I don't love because life is too
Okay.
short. So
Yes.
dentistry for me was playtime. Working
Yeah.
with phobic patients was playtime. Building my dance company was playtime. Everything has been playtime. So I don't do anything that doesn't feel fun to me. And even like the 100-hour work weeks, they were still fun. I just happened to realize I also wanted a life outside of just having fun in my business. I want to have fun in my personal life and enjoy my environment. So yeah, I've never been in the thing, well, you need to grind to get to the next level.
Yeah.
If you're grinding and having fun, why not?
Yeah.
And especially like the people that I work with are impact driven. So they want to enjoy themselves, but they also want to have that impact. They're very much aligned with how I operate in the world as well.
Yeah. And I think there's also like when it comes to like working with people and helping them bring their ideas and achieve these goals and everything, I know I get it all the time when I work with clients who don't think they could become real estate investors, and then we get their first deal under contract or their first closing, and the results that they yield, the feeling that they get from it, the feeling of achievement brings some sort of a feeling of purpose to me. It's like a feeling of, it's very rewarding to help someone produce results. And I think, and every time I work with a new client and they produce results, it's kind of like that rewarding feeling all over again that never gets old, because
Absolutely.
you're helping people, right? And you're
Mhm.
changing lives and you're making people, achieve something that they didn't think would otherwise be possible. So you're always constantly rewarded.
I always talk to people. I'm like, if you're building something, there better be something in it for you. And
Yeah.
money is not going to be enough. And
No.
helping people is not going to be enough. There has to be something that you get from it. So oftentimes what it comes down to is they are fulfilling what they foresaw as their potential. And yes, that has a ripple effect of, yes, I'm helping people. Yes, I'm making money. Yes, I'm have part of the community. But it's that potential that they're realizing that when we really dig through to the epitome of why they're doing what they're doing, there has to be that. Otherwise, it gets old very quickly.
Yeah, 100%. And then you get stuck in that like cycle that we spoke about a little earlier in the episode, that people, I mean, I know a lot of people that work in the corporate world. Yeah, they have the security, they have the stability, but they're in that cycle. And, some realize it sooner than others, and they have no sense of reward at the end of the day, right? Which is why I love being an entrepreneur, because every time you achieve something or a goal, there's a new sense of like accomplishment and reward. So that feeling always stays fresh, never really gets stale.
Yeah. And I find with corporate too, like there is a reward system in it. So again, like I spoke about at the beginning, like the external accolades are what people tend to be relying on. And
Yeah.
right now, the reason our senior professionals are having this identity crisis is the external accolades have disappeared because they're not getting the next position. They don't have those titles. They don't have those companies that they used to work for. And even if they did work for them, it doesn't carry the same weight that it used to in the way that we're moving so fast and evaluating things. So when people can actually find, again, what is that potential that they're trying to realize, whether it's through corporate or it's through an entrepreneurial endeavor, that makes everything easier to tolerate. And it really starts getting them centered in their own value instead of seeking that external that is more quickly every day starting to disappear from us.
Yeah, 100%. And, it surprises me the amount of people there is out there that have these great ideas, have these goals, have these ambitions, have these dreams that they kind of just keep on the back burner. You know what I mean? And don't have the courage to go after for whatever reason. Maybe they're stuck, at their 9 to 5 because it's stable, it's security. Maybe it's because of fear. Maybe it's imposter syndrome, which being an entrepreneur, I'm sure you know a thing or two about, because I don't know. I haven't met an entrepreneur who hasn't had some sort of case of imposter syndrome at all, or their doubt or their internal dialogue. There's
I think it often has a lot to do with their external environment too.
100%.
Like one of my clients, she left corporate. She's former CIO of NASA. She left corporate and her whole circle was like, what are you doing? Like you have the title, you're famous in your industry, you have insurance, like you have all these things. And she wanted to build things her own way. She wanted to create her own path and realize a different potential. But that external thing was messing with her head. Like she knew her path should blow open every door, but that naysaying from her circle also influences it. So there's a lot of factors that go into people having ideas and not moving forward with them. And sometimes it's the external, sometimes it's the internal, sometimes change is just bloody hard, right?
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable, and it really does take boldness to be able to do it. And if no one is there to save you, like if you don't have a safety net of finances or family money or whatever to fall back on, it may not be worth it to take the risk for a lot of people. So I try not to judge people too harshly about it. Some people prefer to stay in the corporate network because they want to be in a team or they want to contribute
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur instead of building their own thing. And that's their place. And I think that's highly valuable as well.
The external factor does definitely have a lot to do with it. You know, like there's even in the business world as an entrepreneur, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's a lot of hard days. You know what I mean? And you have to be able to like tough through it to get past that doubt, get past that fear, get past all that. You know what I mean? And because I mean, if I think about myself, and if I would quit every time I had a hard day or a hard thought based on the day, you know what I mean? But I think being an entrepreneur is about resiliency, perseverance, you know, and all these things. And maybe you don't have them at first, but the good news is these things can develop over time, right? The best way to become confident is to do what you're afraid of doing, right?
And hopefully win at it.
And
Because if you
hopefully
don't
win
win
at
at
it.
it, if you're afraid of doing it and you get slapped out of the sky by the universe, that's not
But
going to help
even
with confidence.
But failures and setbacks, these are, think of it as character development. You know what I mean? I think of it, you know, like if I make a mistake in business, especially if it costs me money, rest assured, I won't make that mistake again. You know what I mean? And I'll be a lot more aware of it. I'll understand and I'll know how to not avoid it, but I'll know what I did wrong. As long as I'm aware of what I did wrong, I'll know how to make it better going forward. So, I mean, I think like one of my last questions would be like, if you had to give 3 pieces of advice to someone who is in your position or was in your position, or anyone who's potentially going through a forceful career change or, you know, going through this identity shift, what would your 3 pieces of advice be?
The first one would be to do the sticky note exercise. So
Right.
literally write out every skill on separate sticky notes, because then you can actually move them around. It's a nice analog exercise. And that will help you to start seeing like, what do you actually want to do? Because we have an opportunity when our world gets burned down to build something new out of the ashes. So that sticky note exercise will help you to realize maybe what you actually want to do. And you can make money doing anything. So
Yeah.
you just have to package it properly to do the next thing. And it might be entrepreneurial, it might be an employment position again. The next thing would be really, what do you want to contribute to the world? So what
Right.
is the impact that you think you were here to contribute, or that you've always aspired to? Because if we have these whispers of inspiration, usually there's something in us that is really wanting to do that, but we may not know the path. And then ask for help.
Yeah.
Because if you haven't done it before, especially with the world right now, everything is moving so fast, everything is evolving so quickly compared to any other decade, even the last couple of years compared to. So if you want to get something going quickly, you do need to ask for people who have the resources. Yes, ChatGPT and other LLMs can definitely give you some answers, but oftentimes they give us information overload. So it's hard to know what lens you should be looking through to find the discernment in it. So if you can get help from someone who's been there and done that to help find that discernment and figure out what the easiest path is forward, it might even just be a 1-hour call with someone who's been there and done it. And then you have the lens to
Yeah.
look through the information for it. But you can save yourself a lot of time by just one little extra investment in yourself of time with someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah. Asking for help is huge. You know, asking for help, I think a lot of people tend to avoid, but it's definitely huge. I mean, where did the nickname the arsonist come from?
Because I hand people matches. I used to literally send lighters with colored paper, like in their brand, to my clients because we were always burning things away. And how I've always operated, you've heard the 80-20 rule. I don't believe in that. I believe in 95-5. So let's find the 5% of the work that you're doing that is giving you 95% of results and burn the rest. Because we spend so much time, especially as entrepreneurs, doing things that are busy, and it makes us feel good because we've been trained that if you are busy, you must be productive, right? It's one of those boxes that we've been trained into. And when we can look at that 5% and focus on that, you can go like I did from 100-hour work weeks to 5-hour work weeks, making more money, creating more impact, but also getting life outside of my business. So that's where the arsonists come from. It's always about simplification, getting rid of the things that don't belong so that you can really design the life that you want.
Amazing. And I like to say, like I've been saying for the longest time, I want to live my life by design and not default, right? So I really like what you just said there. So, I mean, for anyone who's listening and anybody who connects with you right now, what would be the best way for them to reach you?
LinkedIn is always a good place to start. If you're looking to figure out the diagnostic piece of like who you are in this world, what is your niche of genius, how can you be doing what you want either in a company or doing your own thing, you can go to unleashinginfluence.net/app and you can access the personal branding app there to get that process underway. And you get a 100-page document all about you that isn't just parroting back to you what you said to the machine. It actually extrapolates it into the future. So we find people are really able to let go of those external validation points and really get centered in themselves with that.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I mean, thank you for sitting down and chatting with me. This has been a super fun chat,
My pleasure.
and I appreciate it. And I look forward to, seeing where your career goes in the next 5 years. So thanks again.
Thank you.
And for anyone who's watching or listening, be sure to hit that like, follow, comment, or subscribe button. Until next time, we'll see you guys later. Stop recording.